1970, a mother buys an antique doll from a hobby store and she gives it to his daughter Donna as a birthday present. This doll is an example of a series of dolls named Raggedy Andy, designed by the author Johnny Crowell and illustrated in children's books. The reason for naming this doll is because Missy Grown was influenced by a poet named James Riley, and he took the name of the doll from the name of the poems of the same poet. Donna lived in a small apartment with her cousin Angie. Donna, a nursing student girl, was very fond of this doll and always kept it in her bed. But it wasn't long before Donna and Angie noticed the doll's strange behavior. In the beginning, small changes took place in the place of the doll. But Donna did not pay attention and tried to find logical reasons for these events. Every time Donna and Angie return home, they find that the doll is in another room. Either they saw the doll standing or on the head. At first, Donna thought that someone would enter the house when she was not there. That's why he would tape the room door or put something under the carpet so that someone would notice when he entered the house. But when he came back from work, there was no sign of anyone. Little by little, the events became more suspicious. The doll was also writing things to Donna, except for moving. Donna would find pieces of paper that said help us or help Lo. Lo was Donna's fiancé and was dating. In Lo's first meeting with the doll, he did not feel good and said that this doll is evil. But Donna didn't pay attention to her feelings, and this was Donna's biggest terrible mistake. One night when Donna came home, she found the doll in the bed. There is something like a drop of blood on the doll. This panic made Donna and Angie look for a specialist. They found a medium. Mediums are people who mediate between us and the supernatural world. All people have the ability to become mediums, provided that they do a series of special exercises so that they can open their third eye to the supernatural world. The medium told them that years ago in the land where your house was built, a little girl named Annabelle was killed. Now the child spirit is comfortable with you and wants to stay with you and be loved. But it also likes this doll. After Donna hears the story, she accepts that the spirit and child remain in her blood. But very soon they realize that Annabelle is not what they thought, and it was much more dangerous than they believed. One night, when he was sleeping at Donna's house, he suddenly wakes up in the middle of the night with a sudden feeling of fear and panic. He thinks he had a bad dream, but this time it is different from the previous times. He realizes that he cannot move. He looks around and does not see anything unusual in his head. He turns around and sees Annabelle on her feet. The doll slowly pulls herself up on Lo's body. It reaches her chest and wants to suffocate Lo. She is short of breath. She feels suffocated. She tries to push the doll away, but she doesn't have enough strength. She faints when she wakes up in the morning. She can't determine whether what you experienced was a nightmare or a frightening reality. The next day, Lo and Angie were choosing their route for a group trip with a map when a strange noise came from Donna's room. While Donna was not at home with them, they thought that someone had broken the window and entered the house to steal. He goes to the room, opens the door, and sees that there is no one in the room except Annabelle, who is lying on the floor in a corner. To make sure that nothing has been stolen, he searches the whole room. But everything is close to the doll. He feels something standing behind him. Turning his head, he sees no one is there. When he turns around, he sees something grabs his stomach. The wound is so deep and hot. It's like burning his body with fire. 7 wounds, 4 of which are horizontal on his chest, and the 3 vertical wounds on her stomach are bleeding so much that her clothes are covered in blood. After searching, Donna finds a priest named Father and talks to him. The father says that this incident is beyond the jurisdiction of the church and connects them to another priest named Father Cook. When Father Cook comes to them, he puts 7 pages of positive teachings of the Bible and nature in their house and calls the Warren family. Edward Warren Maine lived between 1926 and 2006, and Lorraine Whittle Warren lived between 1927 and 2019, which happened to be not more than a few months after Lorraine's death. Edward was a member of the U.S. Army in World War II, but his favorite work was always researching the cases of the demons and ghosts, holding conferences and writing books about these issues. Lorraine was also a professional medium who worked with her husband. In 1952, the Warren family founded an association called the Society for Psych Research, which is the oldest ghost hunting in the northeastern United States. The life of this family is so interesting that we cannot talk in detail here, as we will explain in the next parts. Edward Wolverine quickly takes them to Donna's house, and after checking, they realize that this doll is controlled by a spirit. The Warren family says that evil spirits can't conquer dolls. Their main goal is to conquer people, and they use objects to connect to this world. The spirit controls the doll, and people think that the dolls are alive. They use dolls to enter people's bodies. In the first step, this spirit shakes the doll, then it starts to leave a sign like a note. But its ultimate goal is to find a medium so that they can communicate. When they find a medium, they first play with their emotions. For example, they say that we are safe, or they say that I am the wandering spirit of a child while you are waiting for permission to stay in your house. Warren continued, the spirit will take 2 to 3 weeks to hunt you down if it doesn't punish or kill anyone. Father Cook's actions raised the spirituality of the house to control Annabelle to a great extent, but Warren immediately removes the doll from the house at Donna's request. He puts the doll on the back seat in the car so that he can take it home, but there is something evil in the car during the entire drive. For example, the steering wheel does not turn or the brakes do not work properly. This makes him put the doll side in a black bag, pour holy water on it, close the car, and drive home safely. After he gets home, he puts the doll on a chair next to his table, but the doll tries to save him. During the few weeks that the doll has been in the Warrens' house, it has come from different rooms. For example, he would leave it in his study, unlock the door, and go out. He was showing terrible signs of himself. One day, someone from the Catholic Church named Peter Jason Benford came to their house and upon seeing the doll on the chair, he threw the doll away and said that there is no evil power higher than the power of God, and you are nothing. Edward says to his father, "It would have been better if you hadn't said that." The father leaves, but Lorraine is worried about the priest. So he calls and says, "Be careful when you come back, and let us know when you come back." After an hour, the priest calls and says that it is a miracle that I come back alive. On my way, I saw the doll's face on the back seat and lost control of the car. The Warrens make a special box to control Annabelle's movement and close it inside. This way, the doll's movements stop. "Don't open the door," on the big box menacing. But Annabelle didn't stop her violent behavior with her deniers and caused the death of another person. One day, a young boy and girl are going to the house of the Warren Museum by motorcycle. The boy starts hitting the window and says that you are not real, that you can harm me. And the boy and the girl turned around and made fun of the doll and laughed loudly because it lost control of the motorcycle. In an accident, the boy's head hits a tree and dies. The girl is hospitalized for a year and survives. After the death of the Warrens, their music will be managed by someone who, despite all this happening and death, people want to take out Annabelle. Some time ago, someone said that I will buy Annabelle for $1 million, and I said that I can't play with people's lives.